Okay, welcome everybody to the session. I think I will start now so we can get in time. Um, we are going to explore a bit how to follow Drupal core development in this session. A bit about me, I'm Marco Villegas. You can find me as Marville07 in Drupal.org. I work with the Fine team in Tag 1 Consulting. I have been involved in Drupal for a while. You can see the number of years on my profile that I'm not willing to say. And I was part of the Git team for the migration to Git, and I like to work on migration and things like that. And recently, single sign-on on Diro, I was helping with that for the DA, and that went well. So we will talk about why do we want to read Drupal core changes, how fast it is, and what resources are around that. And just in case you want, this is a link to the presentation. There are many links that I will be adding in the presentation, so I can come back to this at the end of the presentation, but it's a resource. So the first thing I want to do is thank the Drupal development team and the community at large, because none of this is actually possible if Drupal actually is not developed and it maintains itself. So first, thanks a lot for to the maintainers and all the people that are at large in the community that work on the software. Second, I would like to mention that even if this presentation is highly focused on code, code is not all contributions to the Drupal ecosystem, but that is what this presentation is focusing on right now. So first, let's start on why do we want to actually read changes. And on one side, we have the technical aspect. You always want to know early about new features, and that's something that you can actually do directly if you read the changes. You can also think about possible impact if you have a project that you are maintaining in time. Then you can foresee if there is a module that will not longer be part of Drupal core, and you can know that beforehand. It actually happens on a release. There's also the learning opportunity to actually see what is happening there and maybe what new APIs are being added. On the other side, there is the participation. You can see who is doing the development on Drupal core and which organizations are actively impulsing the development of Drupal. All those are really great reasons to do that, but I may be biased, but it is also fun to actually read the logs there and be know what is happening around. And in parallel to the presentation, I will do a couple of interludes and to actually talk a bit about, because I'm not the first trying to do this, and the first attempt I can find was in 2006. Moshe Wedgman, I'm pronouncing wrong his last name, but Moshe from Drush, he created this Drupal Digest website that contained a curated set of CVS commits. In that point, we were not using it. And it looked like that. You can see a given commit in both Drupal core, but also in contributed modules. So here's one commit from the Bell and one from Drupal core itself. And later, this was also adopted by Greg Nadison in 2007 to do the same, continue this initiative. It was under a different domain, but it is the same idea, a curated set of commits from Drupal core, and also one part for important module releases that were happening at the time. Naturally, all these captures are, as you see, from the Waybind machine in archive.org, but I could find one that actually had a styling from that team in Drupal. So now let's talk a bit about how fast is really Drupal being developed. First, I want to take a look at what Drupal was when it started. It was only 29 files, and mostly PHP. But if we take a jump to now, we have 18,000 files there. 54% are PHP. There are many other formats there, but it's a really big code base. So in one go, it's really hard to actually try to read all Drupal. There are software that still is in that category, but Drupal is definitely, I think, not. Another way to look at this is lines of code. On the renal commits, we have around 4,000 lines of PHP. Now it's more like 3 million. And again, mostly PHP. But still, it's something that we know, okay, PHP is mostly what most of us can see. And the other part is to actually see how fast it is doing. We can see at commits. And commits, this is a graph over time of all the Drupal commits that happened in the repository since its start. And it's around 3,600 right now of commits that we have in the repository per year. We can also look at the version of the commits per version. And this is based on trying to subtract the commits from different versions with each other. And it's around 1,500 commits per version per year, except of Drupal 8.9, that is that big peak in the middle. But apart from that, it's around 1,500 commits per year. That sounds like a lot. But if we look at the recent commits, if we look at the last three versions, 9, 10, and 11, and we look at the last few years, we can actually arrive to more than 1,200 commits per version per year. And that is around 3 or 4 commits a day. And that number we will remember in a bit. So another thing to look at is how many changes are coming in those commits. Changed files. Let's stay with the last figure, which is 11. On 11, since its start, we have around, in average, 77 changed files per day in these 3 or 4 commits. But we also can look at the changed lines per day. And that is around 900 lines changes added per day in those 3 or 4 commits. So how fast, really? If you want to look at the changes, you need to follow the current development version. Right now it's 11, and it is around 3 or 4 commits, and it is around 900 lines of code changes. And it's mostly PHP still. So let's talk about resources around the development. First, we have been talking mainly about the code base, which is managed in Git. So you can see at Git or at GitLab, and the interface is just the set of commits that are actually grouped per day there. We also have release notes that for every release, and this is just one example, 11, you will find information around what are the important changes that are happening on that version, and maintainers try to put the most useful and summarized information that can be there. But those are not the only sources. There are also change records. Change records is this way to try to capture changes especially over API changes or things that affect any part of the code base. And this is just an example from block content test base that changed one of its parameters on how that should behave. But our community mainly works on issues every issue has a lot of metadata, a lot of information. So if you really want to know what is happening around what can change, the issue itself that it references in the commit message is the best resource to actually understand what is happening there, why some decisions has been taken, and get a more in-depth knowledge of what is happening there. You also will see interrelations with other issues, so you will have a big picture of what is happening. You will also see the credits that are there. So one example would be this one from a few days ago, and you will see the issue number there, and then you can go to Didoro and find that issue, and then you can find a lot of metadata that can be used to understand what is happening. So let's take a second small break, and now I will try to talk a bit about the efforts that I made in the past to try to understand what is happening in Drupal core. And in 2008, I found this, around that time, I found this software called CodeSwarm that is a really special way to look at how things are being done. And I posted that over Drupal, and I didn't really get any feedback if you see that link there. But I published it later the next year, one blog post about it. And it is something that is really special. Is like you can see the development, the whole history of development, summarized as a video where you can see the nicknames of the persons that people that is behind the actual development, and you will there is a lot of concept behind it. I can go back to this at the end if we have time, but this is naturally not currently, it's not up until now. This video is a bit old, but it starts with the development since the origin of Drupal. And then I tried to make, naturally, you want to make it more consistent, so I started working on this analyzer base of scripts to try to get something more interesting and consistent happening instead of a one-off video. So I created several things. Basically, I started reading the Git history, and then with some custom PHP, convert that into a SQLite database, and later created several more assets. And you have the link in the previous slide. But basically, for instance, the tag clouds look at like this is Drupal 7 contributors in different sizes depending on the amount of contributions they have. I think this was not based on number of commit, but number of file changes over the whole Drupal 7 development only. But when I made it more, so this I think is by commits. But you have the idea. And also, I started with some graphs about how many commits per month do we have, and this is the comparison between 7 and 8, and that's the time that this was created over. But also started to collect this one, which is interesting, the number of contributors per month that we have, like different contributors, and that is also a really interesting information that we may want to look at. So now let's talk a bit about how do we actually can do this reading of Drupal core. On one hand, you have the manual approach. You can always just do git fetch and log and diff, and you can actually see what has changed. And maybe that's enough for a lot of people. I clearly remember Angie mentioning doing something like this every morning in the past. But yeah, that's one approach. But there are many, as I mentioned, there are many resources around. So you don't need to actually do that if you start following release notes and maybe try to expand the information that you are actually interested into and go to the relevant links that are there. Maybe that's the best approach for you. There's also change records that are available, and you can just go and expand on every one of them. And as I mentioned, most of the metadata that we have about Drupal development is actually inside the issues. So you may want to if something looks really interesting to you, maybe the best idea is to go to this and try to find out the history of what is happening there. And the current effort that I have been trying to do is this core logs, which is a kind of a different thing of the analyzer thing that I mentioned. Now I have taken a really simplified approach. So now I'm just reading the Git history, but I'm also now, since we have Drupal.org API, I'm retrieving information from the issues and also adding some manual input. So I am actually typing things about what I think this commit does with the idea, and yeah, I generate several metadata files, and then I produce this journal that is a manual markdown file that contains the main things that happened over that day. And that is something that I plan to continue maintaining. I'm just around 2 weeks in, but it's something that I have tried in the past, and maybe I have not stayed too close to that, but now I plan to do it because, and that's why I want to simplify the approach here. So yeah, let's start closing these ideas. Again, first, thank you very much, all Drupal contributors, because without that, we don't have anything else to talk about here. And if you need to go with one thought today, you may is this one. You just want to read the active development branch. That is around 3 and 4 commits a day, and it is around 900 lines of code that you need to read, and it's mostly PHP that has been changed. And maybe if you want, you can follow this set of core logs that I am mentioning here. Let me try to open that one. Okay. So this is how it looks. It's just a simple page generated based on a small shell script that creates a set of 1 entry per day, basically. And if this week has been really easy because most maintainers has been really busy with DrupalCon. So there are several days that you will find no information or no commits, but I think this one contains, oops, that is one that didn't contain any commits. So let's take this one. And you will have a small overview and the set of changes, and you will have the title of every commit along a small comment about what I think it is. So that's another approach, and there is a small annex with the set of things that I think may be relevant, and including the organizations. This is based on Drupal.org credit metadata, and it's basically who is working over this set of commits in this day. And has some small statistic that I find interesting. There is this case is usual that the shortest running issue is 26 days or 29 days, the longest. But I have seen days where the longest running issue is 9 years. So it is something that changes over time. So yeah, and if you are really interested in this, I also have a really almost manually created is a small script that does this RSS. So you can actually follow if you still use RSS reader like I do. And that is the main set of things that I wanted to convey in this presentation. So thank you very much for being here. And if you have any questions, this would be a nice moment to ask them. And this is the contribution opportunities that we have during this week. Friday is the main contribution day. And this is the individual session survey.
First of all, cool. Really awesome to see, to do some analysis on the commits and the things we're doing for core. Something that might be interesting. A while back when I started working on JSON API, I did a database with all related issues to find where's the hotspots and what is good to work on. Perhaps that's something that's also interesting here. A lot of issues unblock other issues or are part of a larger meta issue. Perhaps it could be really interesting to see from what base are we working on? What's the most parent issue of the things that are being done? To see, okay, what goals are we actually working towards, and could add quite a lot of value perhaps to the release log, perhaps for you. Are you planning to extend on this and to perhaps look for opportunities to make it even more interesting? And where can we help?
Yeah, for better or for worse, I keep coming back to this topic over the years, as you have seen. So I probably will be around doing things like that, and that is an interesting idea. And patches are welcome. The all the code base or this is just another project in Diro. If you go to the core logs, it is basically there is a link with the core logs. Project that is another Diro project, and all the code base that I'm using and the actual source of the analysis is all public, so it's all there, and I'm happy to expand the scripts to do more.
Okay, awesome, thank you.
So that's it.